How do you get the highest yielding soybeans possible? Well, today we've got some tips that we've learned from some of the top yielding soybean farmers in the country.
You know, there are a lot of things that can be done to soybeans, and for many farmers that are raising corn and soybeans, corn gets all the focus. Corn gets the fertility, corn gets the extra management, when in reality, soybeans can provide a great return on many of these input investments throughout the season.
So one of the things that I think a lot of these high yield soybean farmers have in common is they do have good fertility levels in their soil. They're fertilizing the plant, and sometimes it's through a number of different ways. So for example, they're going to look at their soil test first, and then potassium is a big deal. Micronutrients are a big deal. Sulfur is a big deal. You got to look at the whole package and not just load up on one nutrient. A lot of people talk about, oh, you have to have good phosphorus levels. Yeah, you do. But you really have to have good potassium levels and all these other things to go along with it. And then the other key is doing some plant tissue analysis throughout the growing season. So many of these high yield farmers are tissue testing all through the season, but we believe it's most important to take a look at it just prior to flowering and all the way through flowering. But certainly look at it all through the year and just make adjustments if needed in your soybean fertility plan.
Now, this isn't saying that if you don't have the greatest fertility, you can't shoot for high yields. You certainly can, but you really have to watch it close as you're going through the season and be willing to make multiple applications through the season to feed your plant. So yes, the fertility buildup is a good thing. The other thing to keep in mind too is if you're already raising 60, 70, 80 bushel beans, look at how many nutrients that crop removes. Download the free Ag PhD fertility removal app and look at what your soybean yield level is taking out of the soil and make sure you're replacing those nutrients each year.
So one of the most encouraging things is seeing some of the really high yields come out around the country. There have been many farmers that have been at 100 bushels per acre. There are some going to 120. There are a few that have gotten 140 or even 150 bushel soybeans. And this is not to say, oh, we all should be raising that. This is just to show you that, you know what, today's genetics allow us to get there. I think a lot of people fall under the trap, and this is one of the things that the high yield soybean guys tell us, is people think, oh, the best the genetics can do is 80 bushels or 90 bushels. No, the genetics today can do a tremendous amount more. It's all in how we're going to manage that crop.
There sure have been some high yields set. In fact, the world record was broken in 2016, 171 bushel soybeans. Fantastic. Lots of potential there. It starts with a good fertility program and then a good seed treatment program. It makes a huge difference many years when you look at the fungicide package, protecting from bugs, and even some of the biologicals that are on the market now that are proven. There can be a big difference between seed that's treated and seed that's not.
Probably the top two things I would say, as we've talked to many of these high yield farmers, is number one, micronutrients, and number two, biological products. Those are the two areas that we see the high yield guys pretty much all doing that and the average farmer not doing that. So I'd be taking a look at things like copper and boron, zinc, iron, manganese, all super important. Then on the biological side, try some new stuff. That's basically what a lot of these high yield guys are doing. They got a bunch of little plots on their farm. They're trying this crazy thing and that crazy thing, this biological deal over there. Yeah, it's not all gonna hit, but you know what? They're identifying some things that do work for them on their farms, and then that just gives them that extra 5, 10, 15 bushel boost by the time they stack up a bunch of things. And all of a sudden, yep, they invested more money, don't get me wrong, but they're a lot more profitable, because if you can gain 15 bushels and you only spent the equivalent of 3 to 5 bushels of soybeans, well, you're many, many more dollars ahead.
Brian, they do. The higher yielding farmers versus the average guy, they do some of the very same things. They just do them at different times, and timing is so critical. We talk about it a lot when we look at weed control. You've got to hit them when they're just a couple inches tall, where you can still get them under control. You can't let them bolt up and be 8, 10 inches tall. It's tough to stop those. Insects. When you see those insect populations starting to expand, you got to get after it quick. You can't wait until the whole field is infested before you spray. So the timing of all these things is big, and it doesn't cost any more to do it this way. You just have to get out and scout on a regular basis and be on top of it.
All right, Darren mentioned scouting. That is definitely a difference between a lot of the high yield guys. They're scouting more often. The other thing is they're treating later in the year, and we've even adopted that on our own farm, starting to treat later with fungicides. So in the past, we've done a lot of R1 to R2, some R3 stuff, but they're going all the way to R5, maybe even R6, just handling the last diseases. Remember, with soybeans, they set so much of the yield really late in the year, so keep that soybean plant free from weeds, insects, diseases, even late in the year, and it should pay off.
Well, there's certainly a lot of things that can be done to improve your soybean yields. One of them, of course, is controlling our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?